September's a very busy time in the garden. There's plenty to be doing. As you'll see, most of your bedding plants are probably just coming to an end. If it's still warm, which it is at the moment actually, you can maximise them by giving them a little bit of liquid feed to force them on to keep them looking better for longer. But if you find that they are starting to wither because of the cool night, you want to be replacing them with winter bedding, such as pansies, heather, various hardy grasses, hardy chrysanthemums, little cyclamen, ornamental cabbage. There's a myriad of winter bedding plants that you can be putting in your pots and baskets now, so for colour all throughout winter. Lots of tips that you can do to save money in the garden. You can lift and divide your perennials now, which is a good idea in September, so you can multiply them, i.e. you get one or more or even 3 or 4 plants out of one that you originally planted. It's now an ideal time to be collecting seed pods in September from your perennials that have flowered and the seeds have dried. You collect these in a little paper bag and store them, and usually sow them next spring depending on what type of perennials they are. You can also take tender perennial cuttings from things like pelargoniums and fuchsias. When the cold nights come, they'll start to die back, so either bring them into the greenhouse and take cuttings, or you can save them as stock plants for next year. So yes, plenty of little things you can do to save money in the garden. The ideal time to be uplifting and moving plants in the garden is now, September or autumn time. This is because it's a little bit cooler. Things are coming more into their dormant stage, so the roots aren't making development. If you're wanting to move a box tree or some cordylines or any shrubs indeed, dig a square hole round them, lift up as much root as you can, and then just replant them in the place that you want them to be situated in. Plants that make ideal Christmas presents are things like hyacinths and bulbs, which you plant now and they would flower towards the end of Christmas. This is a wonderful little present. You can use any baskets, tubs, pots, fancy little pots, old materials to plant hyacinths in. Bulbs like this need to be planted in bulb fibre, which contains charcoal. Now, the charcoal helps maintain the healthy pH balance, which stops the root development. So you must always plant your indoor bulbs in bulb fibre. But you can also buy now your spring bulbs and onion sets too in September. Quite common for a lawn to get bare patches in. Autumn's an ideal time to be sort of mending those, so to speak. First of all, mow your lawn, then scarify it. That's where you put prongs into it to aerate it almost. Rake it just with sort of a garden rake to rake out any of the thatch, which is dead debris. It will look a little bit messy after this, but don't worry about that. And then you can seed the bare patches. Water it first, bit of fresh compost, seed. Don't do it on a windy day, and germination in September should hopefully take a couple of weeks. Also, keep the birds away from it because they do like the grass seed. In the veggie plot at the moment, you want to be harvesting all of your late summer crops, which, you know, your tomatoes, your cucumbers, your beans and things like that. So get those either in some nice cooking, on the table straight away to eat, or in the freezer for next year. You want to be lifting your carrots. Do this with a fork, and don't store any of the damaged ones because they'll just rot. Eat those straight away. Onions and shallots, you can be lifting those now when the tops have died back. And your potatoes, you've probably already lifted a few potatoes, but if you've still got any more to lift, you'll know when to lift them when the tops are sort of turning yellow once they've finished flowering. An ideal time to, or an ideal way to do this is put them on the soil just to let them dry off, and then put them in a hessian or paper sack for storage. Tomatoes, again, make sure you pick all those. You might find that some of them are still green because there's not enough sunlight. A way to try and ripen these is put them in a brown paper bag with a banana, or leave them on a sunny windowsill. Sometimes that helps a bit. You've got things like your marrows and squashes. They'll still be growing. Normally, end of October, you'd harvest these kind of things. So put them on straw to avoid them rotting, and it helps the skins go hard so you can store them better. When the last of the harvest is collected, make sure you clear away all the weeds from your site, and then what you can do, you can sow a green manure. In September, you can sow lots of things in your veg patch still. As I mentioned earlier on, you can sow your winter manures and winter tars and things, green manures, which are nitrogen fixing. You can sow winter lettuce direct outside in shallow little rows for early pickings next year. Prep the patch for sowing broad beans in October. You'll still have a few brassicas, and you want to be protecting those from pigeon attacks and things. Any gaps on your vegetable patch, you want to be sowing with green manure, and you can chop this and dig it back in next year, which is nitrogen fixing. It breaks down and improves the soil structure and fertility for next year.